The condition of corn and soybeans slipped in Nebraska this week. The latest progress report lists 61% of corn and 59% of soybeans in good to excellent condition. Each is down 4 points from a week ago. Nebraska Extension's Bob Wright joined us Tuesday on UNL's East Campus research plots to discuss which insects growers should be scouting for, starting with corn rootworms.
Well, right now is when people should be scouting for adult rootworms. Whether to make a decision whether if you still haven't pollinated yet, that they can interfere with pollination by feeding on the silks, but after that they start laying eggs in corn. And if we scout now and make a determination, we can either use foliar insecticides during this season to knock down their numbers, or make a decision as far as whether we want to rotate or change management tactics next year if you're going back into corn.
And is there a definitive need to rotate if you've been using the same type of trait?
Well, that's a good idea. We don't want to, where we've seen problems is where people have repeatedly used the same trait, especially if it's only one Bt protein against rootworms. If you're in continuous corn, I know a lot of the companies are recommending their growers go to a pyramided hybrid, which has 2 or more traits against a particular insect. That's better for resistance management.
Let's have a Japanese beetle update.
Right, they also can interfere with pollination by feeding on the silks, but right now the main issue is in soybeans. They're feeding on this foliage and a lot of other defoliating insects in soybeans right now, various caterpillars. One thing for both the caterpillars and Japanese beetles, they tend to look worse than they are because they're feeding on the upper foliage, and what that does is just lets more light go down into the foliage, into the canopy, and the plant can compensate for some upper canopy damage. But the general threshold is 20% defoliation over the whole canopy in reproductive stage soybeans is what we want to treat at that level.
Aphids an issue?
We're starting to see soybean aphids in northeast Nebraska. This hot weather we had recently really doesn't help soybean aphids. If we get max temperatures down below 90, that's more favorable for their growth and development. So definitely you need to be scouting for soybean aphids. Watch them. They can grow pretty quickly if the temperature conditions are adequate.
Spider mite's a problem.
We're starting to see some reports of spider mites showing up in both corn and soybeans, and particularly plants that are drought stressed. And when we have these high temperatures, that favors spider mites. So that's something to watch for in both corn and soybeans. I know we've seen in corn, we've had reports of some fields in central Nebraska where active colonies are up to the ear leaf, and that's probably where you want to start treating in corn. It's a little less clear in soybeans, but if you're seeing significant leaf injury from spider mites in soybeans and the lower canopy, and they're still actively reproducing, that's something to consider treating.